Hello everybody, welcome to the Wonky Angle, where I talk about electronic music, both new and old. And today, I'm going to be talking about the debut album from Daft Punk, Homework. So yeah, it's my first ever throwback review, and I decided I may as well just start with the most obvious one, so I decided I'd start with Daft Punk. These guys have a huge legacy behind them, not only as one of the most influential groups in electronic music, but also as a band which I'm convinced that nobody in the world does not like. Their debut album here, Homework, is widely considered by many to be a classic, mixing elements of rave and club music, rock music, funk, and I suppose to a lesser extent, punk. This album was the beginning of a legend. So this album has a lot of hype behind it, obviously. Not only is it one of the most influential albums in electronic music, but it's loved the world over to this day. So how many people am I going to get angry by saying I don't really like this album all that much? Alright, hear me out. Alright, look, I don't hate this album. I just kind of think it is really overrated. I understand how this album was really important to electronic music, and to be fair, there are a lot of genuinely great moments on this album. But at the same time, there are also a lot of mediocre moments and just some outright bad moments on this album that I really do not like. Well, I'll start with the good stuff. I think the first 7 or so songs on this album are pretty solid. Well, there we got the intro that's pretty much Daft and Direct and WDPK 83.7 FM. The latter of which is a transition, don't really have much to say about it. First has this vocal sample that would get pretty old if it went on any longer than it does, but thankfully it's only 2 minutes, so it doesn't get annoying. Revolution 909 is a pretty generic club banger, though it does have a nice tight bass line, and there are definitely some interesting moments, kinda like the beginning where there's the sound of the police breaking up a party. This song does get a bit repetitive, as do most of the songs of this album, but it is engaging and it sounds pretty cool, so it holds my attention for its 5-minute running time. Then we got Daft Punk. This is one of the most iconic Daft Punk songs around. Once you hear it, you never forget it, and it's actually really easy to sing along to, even though there's no words in it. Phoenix is also around 5 minutes long. I kinda wish it weren't that long. The bass line's cool, but the sample gets old after a while. On the other hand, we have Fresh, which also has a really short sample that repeats a lot, kind of like Phoenix, but first of all, the sample's a lot better, and second of all, it's a more interesting track overall. It's got some cool distorted guitar sounds, and some ocean sounds too. Pretty cool. Then, of course, we have everybody's favorite, Around the World. There is no samples involved in this at all. Daft Punk came up with the hook themselves, and it's also one of their catchiest. It goes on for 7 minutes, and though it's pretty much the same thing over and over, it doesn't feel like it went on for 7 minutes. It's actually quite a lot of fun. Its length is justified by its hook alone. Now, I like my songs to be long and extended, but there are 2 7-minute songs on this album that I think really do not justify their length at all. One of them is Rollin' and Scratchin'. This song is okay, it's got 2 different hooks, but these hooks are just kind of noisy for the sake of being noisy. They're really repetitive. It gets old pretty quickly. I feel like this song could have been maybe 4 minutes or something, but not 7. Even worse is Rock and Roll. It goes on for 7 minutes. It's got a kind of okay beat that I think could have lasted me 2 minutes. And then also this weird distorted synth effect, like this guitar or synth effect or whatever, it's also really repetitive, gets old really fast. And aside from that, there's almost no progression in the song. Like maybe the synth changes pitch a little bit, and that's about it. Oh yeah, and there's also a fake ending in this song, making it feel a lot longer than it actually is. As for the other songs, well, they're pretty hit and miss. We got Teachers. The sample on this one isn't great, but you have Daft Punk pretty much just listing off all their influences, so that's pretty cool. We also got High Fidelity. This track is awesome. They take a sample of Billy Joel's Just the Way You Are and make it pretty much unrecognizable, and yet somehow maybe even catchier than the original. They have like 3 different hooks on this just from that one song, and it works really well. It's one of my favorites. Oh Yeah is only about 2 minutes long. If it were any longer, this would have gotten really old really fast. Burnin' is very close to being in the same camp as Rollin' and Scratchin' and Rock and Roll, but this one at least has this cool bass line that prevents it from being one of my least favorites. Then we have Indo Silver Club. This has a cool sample that sounds catchy at first, but then the beat doesn't match up with it at all. Like they're off sync and it doesn't sound right. Almost becomes like less catchy as a result. Finally, we have the ending. Alive is decent enough. It's noisy and loud, but not super annoying. Pretty cool, actually. But then we have Funk Ad, which is pretty much just a minute of Daft Punk played backwards. I don't know, kind of a unsatisfying ending if I have to say so myself. Kinda wish that they just finished with Alive and left it at that. So, overall, this album does have some great moments, which I love, but in my mind it's held back by a lot of just kinda mediocre moments, and some just plain not good moments, like Rollin' and Scratchin' and Rock and Roll. Those songs are tough to get through. Now, this album's still listenable all the way through. I mean, I may have hit on Rock and Roll a lot, but I never really feel the urge to skip the songs, even if I'm not really enjoying it in any way. I could think of much worse things to listen to. I don't feel like this album wasted my time in any way. I've returned to it many times over the years, but at the same time, I just cannot overlook all these problems I have with the album. Overall, feeling a 6.7 out of 10. Favorite tracks: Revolution 909, Daft Punk, Around the World, Fresh, and High Fidelity. Least favorite track: easily Rock and Roll. And that's pretty much it. What were your thoughts on this album? I assume you probably liked it more than I did. Make sure to tell me about it in the comments, or if you have any requests for what I should review next, make sure to tell me about that too. And in case you guys think I don't like Daft Punk because of this, don't worry. This is coming next. So yeah, that's everything. That's all for today. See you next time.